So, I've noticed recently, and definitely a lot over the past 5 years that I've been vegan, a lot of the same arguments, justifications, reasons, excuses seem to repeat themselves. A lot of the same things come up. Now I realise at this point, because I've used the V word, I would have already lost a lot of people. And he's talking about veganism again. Bloody vegans trying to save the planet, make sure our grandkids have somewhere to live healthily, and make people not fund animal abuse. So I understand. I would have lost a lot of people. You get used to it. But the same arguments, excuses, reasons, whatever you want to call them, do come up over and over and over again. So I thought, well, let's try and address some of those reasons. And plenty of people like Joey Carbstrong, Earthling Ed, plenty of others have done a far better job than the one I am about to attempt, but I wanted to address some of the things myself to give my take on things. So, people debate about the environment, say, oh well, stop eating the animals, we'll need much more land to grow your crops to feed you because animals are full of calories and blah blah blah. Incorrect. It's considerably less land. It's like to feed a vegan for a year, you need the equivalent of a football pitch. To feed a meat eater for a year, you need about 10. It might be 7 or 8, but I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a lot more. So, because 85-90% of the land that we use to grow crops are used to grow crops to feed animals, so you can eat animals. So if we're not eating the animals, we can still grow the crops, and we would actually free up a lot of land for rewilding and various other things. And because we're growing plants, not CO2 and methane emitting large herbivores, we're going to be putting a lot less pollution into the air. In fact, we're actually going to be sucking carbon out of the atmosphere, because that's kind of what plants do. So maybe educate yourself there, look it up. And I have had people question the results of the studies from people in Oxford professors and various other people. They've debated and gone, well, they would say that. Yes, they would say that because it's the truth, and it's facts. That's what they do. So yes, they would say that. But if it wasn't true, they wouldn't say that. And a top tip is, if you want to know how valid, reputable, and unbiased or biased a survey or study is, follow the money. Because you can pretty much guarantee when you read in the newspaper or wherever that a study has been done that shows butter is good for you and meat doesn't cause cancer and, you know, just all of these ridiculous things. Well, if you follow the money, you will find that that study was paid for by the people that sell the butter, the dairy, the milk, the beef, the whatever it is. They will have funded that. Oh, I'm loving this, I'm Batman. But they would have funded that. It's the independent studies that aren't funded, aren't financially influenced by the industries themselves. They're the ones that are telling the truth. That's, you know, that's how it works. And we know that because remember a time when doctors and various other studies showed that cigarettes don't cause cancer? And then it turns out, yes, they freaking do. And the studies that said they don't were funded by the tobacco industry, big tobacco. Well, what happened then? Which took 75 years. It took 75 years from the evidence that showed cigarettes cause cancer to the actual sort of warning labels and the widespread knowledge that yes, cigarettes, you know, smoking causes cancer. 75 years. Well, FYI, the dairy and meat industry has grown rapidly and continued to grow pretty much from the end of World War II, when there was a surplus of dairy and the farmers didn't know what to do, so the government stepped in. And that was, let me think, how long ago was that? Sort of like 80 years? Something like that? Yeah. Coincidence? Yeah. So, what happened with big tobacco is now what's happening with big dairy, big meat, big pharma, because big pharma love the fact that if you keep on eating the stuff that makes you ill, you'll also keep on eating, you'll also keep buying the tablets that don't make you better, do they? They don't make you better. They don't cure your diabetes and your high blood pressure. They just regulate it just enough to keep you alive, so you can keep on buying those tablets. That's what they do. If you're on medication, you're not on medication to cure you. Don't cure people. Just keep people alive. Very different thing, isn't it? Very different thing. Most people don't realise that one of the major side effects of things like chemotherapy and other cancer drugs, one of the side effects, it says it on the packet as well, one of the other side effects is that it can cause cancer. Probably didn't know that, did you? Yeah, I didn't. Until I did. So there's the medical, there is the medical side as well. Oh, you need meat because it's full of iron and it makes you strong and healthy, and well, it is full of iron, but it's something called heme iron, which isn't the same as the iron that you get from, say, dark green leafy vegetables, which, yes, I know they don't taste as yummy as bacon and burgers and steak. They can do once you get used to it and you realise what it does and how it makes you feel and how it regulates your cholesterol, your blood pressure, and it helps you poo in under 15 minutes rather than sitting there on the toilet attempting to what feels like push your bowels out of your anus, you know. But yeah, dark green leafy veg, full of iron, and lots of other things are full of iron and fibre which meat doesn't contain, or barely any, and it doesn't contain cholesterol and saturated fat, which meat contains a lot of, and sodium and growth hormones, which meat, especially chicken, contain a lot of. FYI, chicken is actually one of the worst meats. It's not as healthy as people think. I used to believe it was, until I've discovered that it isn't. So you do get the health side. People go, oh, I need to eat it because it makes you strong and healthy and blah blah blah. Well, newsflash, the leading diseases, or not diseases, but illnesses, which is a dis-ease. You are not healthy. The leading illnesses that cost the NHS, put people in hospital and kill people. Yeah. Of the top 10, 8 of them are the direct result of eating animal products. Eggs, pretty much the highest form of cholesterol, and it's a chicken, period. So you might eat something that came out of an animal's arse. I know it's not the arse, it's the croaker, but I get it. And so the medical side, no. The medical side doesn't. Just because you can survive on a meat, egg and dairy based diet doesn't mean it's the best thing for you. Also, we have the argument of, well, we've eaten meat for thousands of years. Yes, we've also been murdering and raping and robbing and killing and doing lots of things for a very long period. Also enslaving. FYI, there's actually more slaves on the planet now than have ever existed. Slavery, still alive and well, folks. Just because we've done it for thousands of years doesn't mean that we should be doing it. Okay? The length that you've been doing something, the longer you do something, it doesn't increase the justification. It's not like points in a video game or something. You go up certain levels and then, I'm fighting the boss. Doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. Sorry. But with the age thing comes religion. Religion crops up a lot. The one that I hear a lot as a practicing Christian is, well, God said that we could eat animals. Well, it says in the Bible that we can eat animals. Well, there are arguments on both sides. There are some that you'll take. If you want to eat animals, you'll go, well, I'm going to use that because it says in the Bible that we can eat animals. And then if you don't want to eat animals, you can take this bit that says we shouldn't eat animals. So there's, it is a confusing thing. So if we accept that there are parts that say you can and parts that say you can't, we just go, right, they cancel each other out. That's blank, that's neutral. But if we go from the religious perspective and the unquestionable fact that God is love, well, it was Confucius who said to love a thing is to want it to live. And I pretty much think that God would agree with that. God is love, and if our job, whatever our religion, is to be more like God, more like Jesus, same thing, yeah, then if we have the choice of financially funding the mass enslavement, abuse and murder of innocent sentient beings or not, well, what do you think God or Jesus would do? It'd go, well, yeah, you just don't. It's like, oh, you want a burger? Serve a burger. You want bacon? Serve bacon. You want ham, chicken, KFC, Like, and they're all making them, aren't they? They're all making them now. So it's not even like, oh, I've got to make it myself. I love making vegan food and changing existing things. I do an amazing vegan KFC with oyster mushrooms. Amazing. Looks like chicken. Tastes like KFC. Looks like KFC. Brilliant. No animals involved. Ta-da! It's just literally just, you have to go from the meat aisle, which is, I mean, it's effectively just, if that was all chopped up cats and dogs, there'd be uproar and people wouldn't go in there. But because it's chopped up animals that behave the same as cats and dogs, pigs are more intelligent than dogs, by the way, but they pretty much act the same. But because it's those animals and they're not cats and dogs, it's like, yeah, it's fine, you can walk down. How weird is it? You can walk down a row of butcher, the word itself is hardly pleasant, is it? You can't humanely butcher someone. Have you ever heard of a mass murderer who humanely butchered his victims? Like, well, yes, I know I did murder them, but I made sure they had a very good quality of life, and I made sure they wore blindfold. They couldn't see the victim that I was murdering ahead of them, and I sedated them with drugs. So it was all done very humanely. And the judge turns around and goes, "Oh, well, I mean, I've heard the evidence, so you're free." Doesn't happen. You can't do it to a cat, a dog, a horse. I mean, you know, that's a weird one, isn't it? Horses and rabbits. Are they pets? Are they food? Because in some countries they eat them, in some countries they eat gerbils and hamsters. Some countries they eat cats and dogs and dolphins and whales. The cute animals, the poster animals that people love, they're the ones that people are. What it seems to be is, if you think an animal is ugly, you can eat it, and if you think an animal is pretty, you don't eat it. That's, you know. And then if people do eat them, dogs, cats, dolphins, seals, they're out of order. They're weird. They're wrong. They're, you know, they're this, that, and the other. They're all the things. We will call them and talk about them and shout and protest about them exactly the same way that we say vegans shouldn't talk about and talk to and protest and shout at us about. It's the same thing. We do it to them, and then a vegan does it to us, and we go, shouldn't do that, doesn't work. It's another one that comes up. I would be vegan, but I don't like the way vegans are. That comes up quite a lot. Don't like the way the vegans are. Okay. Well, you know, you could just go vegan and not be like those vegans that annoy you. You can do that. You can go vegan and be a quiet vegan who doesn't ever talk about it, doesn't protest about it, doesn't post or anything about it. Now, my personal opinion, I'm not really keen on those vegans, because it's kind of, you know, it's like kind of being someone who's apparently really against racism, but, you know, won't post anything about it, or won't go on a rally about it, or won't speak up about it, won't voice their support for it. You know, somebody who's against misogynism and the abuse of women, but doesn't talk about it, doesn't get any involvement in the Me Too movement, doesn't, you know, don't want to upset anyone. It's just my thing, and I'm gonna be quiet about it. I mean, you can do that, fine. If that's what you want to do, it's fine. I think if there was a massive injustice like racism, misogyny, domestic abuse, violence towards women or children, and, you know, deforestation and deforestation and, you know, destruction of the Amazon and all these things, it's kind of our duty to voice our disdain for those things, to voice the fact that they are not okay and acceptable. You know, maybe they used to be, but not anymore. It's kind of our duty. Because the other thing people will say, especially with regards to religion, they'll say, well, you know, we've been given dominion over the animals. But yes, that is true. But please do not don't interpret dominion as domination, because they're different things. To have dominion over something is to hold sway, to have control, to be in charge of. Yes, absolutely. But that's kind of how the police have dominion over the general public, or adults have dominion over children. Having dominion over someone doesn't mean you can abuse and murder and do whatever you want. That's not what it means. God didn't just like go, yeah, do whatever the fuck you want to them. Off you go. It's all good by me. He didn't do that. And the other thing is people go, oh, we can do it because God said that we can, right? In the Bible, I had this conversation recently. Now, in the Quran, there isn't anything that says in the Quran, this isn't me making it up, I've actually sort of looked at this a lot and I've heard this said, watched it being said by very senior Muslim leaders who say there's nothing in the Quran that says you have to eat cows or other animals. There's nothing that says you have to. You might say, if you're going to eat animals, these are the ones that you are allowed to, and if you're going to, this is how, you know, they must be killed or whatever. That's not the same as saying you must. There's nothing in the Quran that says you have to eat animals to be a Muslim, just as there's nothing in the Bible that says you must eat animals to be a Christian. So that takes us back to the fact that like maybe you can, but you don't have to. So if you don't have to, again, you're actively choosing, do I financially support and fund global animal enslavement, abuse and murder, or do I not, for the sake of a sandwich, pizza, snack? I mean, it's not even anything significant. It's not like, do I pay for this animal to be killed instead of my child being killed? It's not that. It's, do I pay for this animal to be killed because I want a snack? Or do I eat something that looks the same, tastes the same, that I might not have ever had before, but no animal is enslaved, abused and killed for the sake of my 2-3 minutes of you know, sensory pleasure. It's literally that, isn't it? It's literally that. Dominion isn't a case of do whatever you want. That isn't what it means. It's not what it means. No, you don't want to hear that. And again, I am at the stage now, and it's not a popular thing to say, but I'm of the opinion now that you can be vegan without being God-fearing. And by God-fearing, it doesn't mean, I'm scared of God. That's not what God-fearing means. God-fearing actually means more God-respecting. The word fear, again, that's very easy to misinterpret a word. So we misinterpret dominion, we misinterpret the word fear in God-fearing. It merely means God-respecting. And I am of the opinion you can be vegan without being religious in any way, shape or form. You can be vegan without being Christian. However, I don't believe that you can be Christian without being vegan. Why? Well, because God wants us to show love and compassion and kindness to others and to do unto others. And when we buy animal products, or if you raise an animal and kill it yourself, it's the same thing. You're just cutting out the middleman. But when we do that, there's no love or compassion in that. I know farmers will go, oh, but I love my animals. If you love your animals, you don't kill them. Nobody says, I love my dog, but when it gets to the age of 6 months and it's nice and tender, I'm going to kill it and eat it. But it's fine, it had a good life. If you buy organic, grass-fed beef and this, that and the other, and it's important to you that the animal has a good life before it's murdered. We use the word slaughter, but, or kill. It's murder. It doesn't want to die. Somebody's killing it against its will. If it's important that it has, ask yourself, why is it important that it has a good life before it's murdered? Why is it important? Because the only logical reason that it's important to you that animal has a good life before somebody kills it and chops it up so that you can eat it for your Sunday roast. Cute little lambs. You sit outside the pub in the country, looking at the fields, looking at the bouncy lambs and saying to your kids, oh, look at the lambs, aren't they cute? Whilst simultaneously eating the flesh of a murdered lamb. I mean, that's just, like, really? It's like, I don't know what the comparison would be. Looking out over a playground at all the kids running around going, oh, kids are so cute, aren't they? Well, eating meat of a child. It's just weird, isn't it? But there is no, if you need that animal to have a good life, well, it's because you care about animals. Simple as that. You care about animals. There's God, I'm trying to think of what else comes up. I mean, religion comes up a lot, the environment comes up a lot, health comes up a lot. There's so much that comes up, but at the end of the day, there's the other thing that comes up in religion quite a lot, I literally just remembered, is people say, well, because it says in the Bible that we can. Well, it also says in the Quran that you need to take into account and adapt to your time and your environment. And the same thing kind of applies to the Bible. 2,000 years ago, people lived in terrible conditions. They had a very short lifespan, and it was pretty much a case of, eat this animal or you will die. And it might, and it may have been part of a sacrifice, but then, this guy Jesus came along, and he was the ultimate sacrifice that went, don't need to sacrifice anymore. God has sacrificed his son. Bang, end of sacrifice. Don't have to do it anymore. Thank you very much. So it may be a sacrificial thing, don't need to do it anymore. And when it comes to sacrifice, again, what is a true sacrifice? Is it paying for something to be killed so you can eat it, or is it sacrificing your desire, your taste buds, your desire, and go, I might want it, but I'm going to sacrifice that for the sake of the animal, and because I love all of God's creatures. The latter is a bigger sacrifice because you're doing something that is uncomfortable. You are actually sacrificing something. It's not a sacrifice to go, I'm going to eat a burger, I'm going to have a steak or roast lamb or something. Not sacrifice. Sacrifice 3 times a day, do you? But you do, you get an awful lot of that. But the other thing is, just because it said 2,000 years ago that you could do something doesn't mean we have to do it now. I remember when I was about 3 on a car journey, and all parents will probably relate to this, on a car journey, desperate for wee, and I was told that it was absolutely fine to stand beside the road and have a wee onto the grass, into the drain, into the bushes. That's absolutely fine. Well, because my dad told me that when I was 3, does that mean it's acceptable? Can I just pull up anywhere, stand beside the road and pee onto the pavement, into the bushes, just stand there with my willy out? Can I do that? Is it acceptable? Because my dad told me that 46 years ago when I was 3. No. What was acceptable a long time ago doesn't mean it's acceptable now, does it? Because guess what? Times change, things change, people change, society changes. What we consider acceptable changes. It's almost acceptable now that there is so much porn everywhere. It's practically pornographic, and adverts that you see on billboards, women wearing underwear and barely covering nipples, bikinis and stuff. It's almost acceptable now, but 2,000 years ago, yeah, I don't think so. But then there were 2,000 years ago, you could stone women for having sex with a man who wasn't her husband and various other things. It's not acceptable now, is it? There's plenty of things that used to happen 2,000 years ago that is no longer acceptable. So maybe that's not really the justification that we're looking for, is it? And people talk about apex predators and we eat meat and we're omnivores. Well, we're not really omnivores, are we? Show me an omnivore. Just you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. I remember there was having this debate with a guy who was banging on about a French guy who used to eat planes. Okay, so that means that for our own health we should eat planes. I mean, I remember as a kid I used to quite regularly eat sheets of white paper, not whole sheets, but just bits of white paper. Kids do weird things. Well, just because I could do it doesn't mean that I should do it. And we already know that the leading causes of the major health issues that the NHS have to pay for and try and rectify are caused by the consumption of animal products. The hospital wards aren't absolutely crammed full of B12 and protein deficient vegans. It's not true, is it? But show me an omnivore, any other omnivore that could eat some roadkill or raw chicken and get food poisoning, throw up everywhere, defecate everywhere, and need to end up in hospital, before they get incredibly ill or possibly die. Any other omnivore? There isn't. We're the only ones that would have to cook that roadkill, and even then, because it's roadkill, even then we probably couldn't or shouldn't eat it. Show me an omnivore that has to cook a chicken. There isn't one. So know, if you are one of the people to use these reasons, excuses, you need to understand, well, you're not a lion. You're not an apex predator. You don't live on a desert island. You don't live, you're not a Native American Indian. You're not an Inuit. These people that have to do it or they'll die. You're not a baby cow. You're none of these things. You're not. What you are, unfortunately, this is the fact of the matter. What you are is someone who's choosing to financially support the largest and most abusive business in the history of everything abusive to animals, the largest anti-feminist movement or industry ever. You are literally just someone who is choosing to financially support that and trying to justify it when there is no need for it. There is no real justification for it. And I think the reason that people get angry when vegans point out their own sort of hypocrisy and stuff, it's because nobody likes to be told that what they're doing causes harm and is abusive. And I get it. I really do. I did it for 44 years. Said that I didn't give a shit about animals, and the cuter they were, the tastier they were, and all of these things. But then God had other plans and just went, yeah, you kind of need to go vegan and realise the error of your ways. I'm not saying that if you eat animals you are a bad person and you're going to go to hell, and it's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that there's a better option, and for whatever reason you're not choosing it. And the reason you get angry when people talk about it is because somewhere in here and in here, you know that is true. And it's very difficult to change your behaviour when you're made to realise that behaviour needs to change. So I get it, honestly do. But what is stopping you? What would you need? Because people say you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, and there's a better way of preaching veganism or not preaching veganism because preaching is wrong and this, that and the other. And very often I say to people, and this happens a lot, I say to people, okay, what way of promoting veganism would I do that would make you more want to quit eating animal products? And pretty much 99 times out of 100, I never get an answer, which is a shame. Anyway, pretty certain there's something that I've not covered. If you got this far, thank you. If there's something that I've not covered, comment below. Happy to chat. But no nasty comments, because I will just delete them. Very easily done. Right. Catch you later, herbivores.